Hi everyone, welcome to this fourth lecture on writing an abstract as a part of technical communication. In this session, we will talk about what is an abstract and how do you write an abstract in technical writing. So an abstract is supposed to answer the following questions. What is proposed in the paper? Know that we are specifically focusing on academic writing or research writing, which means that there is some novelty which is proposed in this paper, like the paper makes some contribution to the knowledge base. So the questions that an abstract aims to answer are: what is proposed in this paper? That is a description of the aim or the objective of the work. How is this objective met? What method or methodology is used? What is observed as the result of using this methodology? That means the results and discussion section. What is the inference from these results? Like what do the results mean? What is the implication of those results? These are the inferences that you draw from these results. And if that is the case, so what? Like what is the impact of this work, right? So what is the significance of this work? Let's take an example, and this is an example from chemistry. So it says, in this experiment, chromatography was used to analyze amino acids in solutions. Standards were used to identify unknown amino acids. Ascending layer chromatography was used to separate these and then were detected with ninhydrin. This unknown mixture was then analyzed and something was observed, and this technique was found to be an effective way to analyze unknown mixtures. And a mechanism for some binding is proposed based on this observation. So if you look at whether this abstract actually covers these aspects, we can see that the first sentence essentially describes the aim and the objective. The next sentence is about what methodology was used. The third sentence talks about what was found using this method. And it's typically expected in, say, engineering papers that some quantitative information is provided in terms of these results. So this is a chemistry paper, but if this was an engineering paper or a technology paper, one would expect, a reviewer would expect that some quantitative information, like some numbers, some empirical results are presented. Like efficiency was improved by how much %? What was the sample size? How many participants participated in this study? Something like that. Right? So quantitative information is important, is considered important in abstracts. The next sentence essentially says what inferences the authors drew from this experiment. And lastly, the significance is actually not covered in this abstract. So what is very important, and we can then rephrase what are some important aspects of abstract writing, is to clarify. It should be absolutely clear to the reader what was the aim of the research, what methods were used, a summary of overall results, and of course including some quantitative values, a comparative analysis. Now, not the whole analysis, but some mention of how your proposed algorithm fares as compared to other state-of-the-art techniques in the same area. It should also be clear from the abstract what is the novelty of this work, what is the core contribution that this work makes to the knowledge base, and what is the inference and significance or impact of this work overall. Know that an abstract should be very effective. It should be a very good representative of your work. Say, consider an abstract to be a spokesperson for your work. In many cases, your work will be archived in digital libraries. Oftentimes, a regular reader may not have access to those digital libraries. So whether or not they decide to find your paper will depend on how the abstract is written. Now, abstracts of all papers are freely available. In any digital library, when you search for a paper, the abstract is visible. The full paper may not be visible, right? For full paper, you may need some subscription. So whether or not an author decides to read your paper and cite the paper, it's important that the complete impact of that paper is reflected very clearly in the abstract. Okay. Now, for different avenues like different conferences, journals, there would be a word limit for abstracts. We should strictly adhere to those word limits. And there may also be a style of abstract, like what should or should not be used within an abstract. Now, typically, references are not included in an abstract. You do not cite something in your abstract. Okay, there are different types of abstracts, and we'll discuss a couple of them. Here is a suggested reading for what is a good abstract versus what's a bad abstract. When I share these slides with you, please go to this link and read this article. Let's look at an AI generated example of a poorly written abstract. So I asked ChatGPT to write me an abstract on exploring VR and a study of UX and interaction in augmented reality environments. So what ChatGPT actually produced for me is, in terms of language, it is perfect, but in terms of communicating what exactly the work did, it does not give me any information, right? It is too generic. It contains no information about research methodology. So if you read it, in fact, the title itself is quite vague, right? It doesn't really specify what technology was actually proposed. Sounds more like a study paper and not a research paper. This paper investigates the VR technology and its impact on UX and interaction in augmented reality in environments. Okay, first sentence is okay. The study aims to explore various aspects of AR/VR integration and user engagement. So what aspects? It does not say. The research employs qualitative and quantitative methods to gather data from participants who interacted with the AR/VR system. Now, what was the research methodology? What was the sample size? What kind of data was actually collected is not mentioned. Right? The results show that the users found the experience interesting. Again, not quantified in any way. There were positive aspects related to user interaction. What positive aspects, what exactly was the finding, is not mentioned. However, some challenges were identified, such as technical issues or discomfort. Now, this is still a little more specific than what has been said so far. The findings of this study contribute to the existing body of knowledge and provides valuable insights. Now, this sentence just doesn't make any sense because the abstract has not established any such findings, but is claiming a lot of things, right? It's claiming that there is this significant contribution to existing body of knowledge. So such sentences should not be included without being actually supported by any data. So since I could not find an actual poorly written abstract, I asked ChatGPT to write it for me, and this is a very good example of a poorly written abstract. Okay? It doesn't contain any specific details and no implications as such. Let us consider another example. This is a paper by my PhD student, and he first starts the abstract by establishing what is the context of this paper, then mentions what exactly is proposed in this paper. He then goes ahead and sort of gives a very brief background on what is this algorithm that we are trying to enhance and how exactly the proposed framework actually enhances this algorithm. Now, we are using a concept called stochastic resonance, and since SR is a concept of physics not possibly known to engineers, it's a good idea to once mention what is SR, right, and how it fits in here, what is the context of SR being used here. Then he specifies that how exactly are the similarity weights iteratively processed, how outputs are observed, why actually this kind of a processing gives us better results, a good observation in terms of enhanced edge preservation. Then he mentions comparative results in terms of other algorithms. What exactly is this algorithm found to address more efficiently? He mentions benchmarking results and quantitative results. Although due to word limit, the future impact or the implications are not mentioned in this abstract. This is a published abstract and this could be considered as a well-written abstract. Now, in addition to these general abstracts, which are typically 200 or 300 word long, which are supposed to be in paragraph form, right? There are other types of abstracts called structured abstracts or extended abstracts. These are much longer than your regular abstracts and they have distinct labeled sections like introduction, methods, results and discussions. It could be 1 page or 2 page long depending on where you are submitting it. Know that this is different from a general abstract which is supposed to be just 200 to 300 words or even lesser. And it is just supposed to be paragraphs. A structured or extended abstract actually should have these separate headings. one such example of a structure of a structured abstract could be context, goal, what is the approach, what are the outcomes, what are the conclusions, and some keywords. Right, so IEEE EduCon, it's a flagship conference of IEEE Education Society, and they say that the extended abstract should summarize the scope of the paper and explicitly mention what are the primary results, emphasize on what new advances are being made or new theories or applications are being shown in this paper. The third type of abstract is a graphical abstract. Now, a graphical abstract is a single schematic image. It visually represents the primary findings of an article. So if somebody, instead of wanting to read a few paragraphs, just wants to look at an image, this graphical abstract is what is going to serve that purpose. Right? So Elsevier, which is a publishing house, actually has a link that talks about graphical abstract. Please go through that. And the main idea is that it should have a concise title, and the visual appearance of the abstract should be such that you introduce the context and you make the first point, then you showcase your methodology, and then you show your outcome. Right? You may want to write the authors, the details of the authors, their affiliations, some URLs, or whatever contact details are required, but it should be visually stimulating and it should be very concise. Right? So for example, this is one such abstract from Annals of Surgery. Right? So the title is very clear, that the key question being addressed, the key research question being addressed is clearly mentioned in the title. The summary of outcomes is given in very brief terms, like what was actually found is mentioned, a visual representation is done, the data is also visually shown. Right? And the authors and how to cite this paper, what is the journal name, all these things are also mentioned. This is another example of an abstract where the title is now posed as a question, the context is explained, how they studied between two different consequences, it is shown visually, and the author details are also shown. So the exercise that I would like you to do as a part of this abstract writing is that you should write an abstract of your most recent project, any project that you have worked on, within 200 words. You should not in any case exceed 200 words. Make sure that your abstract contains all those important aspects that we discussed earlier in this session. And for the same project, for the same abstract, create a graphical version of your work as well. Create a graphical abstract. Make sure it is in 16:9 aspect ratio, like a presentation slide. There are many tools that you can use to create this graphical abstract. You could use PowerPoint or Canva, Adobe Illustrator, or any other graphics tool that you feel comfortable with. Please make sure that if you're using any graphics or any images, you have the permission to use those graphics. Right? So there should not be any copyright violation when you are looking up graphics and trying to use them in your abstract. If there is a very well-defined algorithm that you're following, even a block diagram of the proposed approach could be considered as a graphical abstract. So, but just make sure that your graphical abstract or the block diagram or whatever contains all the important information that you want to be present in your main abstract. Right? So a reader who reads your abstract or just looks at your graphical abstract gets the same information, the same extent of information. Please do this exercise, and the deadline for this will be 1 week since I post this. Thank you. Have a nice day.